A few weeks ago I picked up the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3 in the hopes that it would become my new racing shoe. I produced my first run video for you guys and then a follow-up video letting you guys know how I got on with it in testing and was excited to test it out in the first race to see how it would perform. And the reality was they did so well at the Linda Franks 5 miler, I chose them for the next race, the Boddington 10, and that would be the decider as to whether I used them for my big goal race, the Alicante half marathon. And sure enough, they were absolutely fantastic at Boddington, therefore they got the nod to be the race shoe of choice over in Spain. Now this was quite a big deal for me because I'm a massive fan of the Next Percent, and I do have a few versions of the Next Percent 2 that have enough miles still to race in. They're not as good as version 1, but they're still one of my go-to racing shoes. And bar the Saucony Endorphin Elite, which was the other shoe that knocked the Vaporfly off top spot, I've never really deviated away from Nike racing shoes until now. And I did mention to you guys I'd give you an update on the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3 after I'd done some racing in it. The reality was it was probably going to be an extra channel video. However, I've had so many questions from you guys in the comments and on Instagram about how I'm getting on with this shoe, I thought I'd address it in a main channel video. And I can confirm that I have discovered one thing with this shoe which I think you guys might need to be aware of. However, for me, it's not a big deal breaker. For you guys, it might be. So what we'll do, I'll give you a very quick wear and tear because there's really not too much to talk about. We've got 53 miles in this shoe right now, a few training runs and 3 races. I'll let you know how the races have gone in terms of performance, and then I'll get into that one thing that I think you guys should be aware of. Otherwise, let's get straight into this. Let's speed through the wear and tear because there's really nothing to talk about. The upper is looking really good, still feels really good. What you'll notice with this shoe is it is a nice snug fit. Some people like to go true to size like myself. Other people I know have gone half a size up. I'd say I have a half a thumb width at the end, which is a little bit smaller than what I would have in normal racing shoes. However, I'm not worried because in a race I want to feel nice and streamlined, nice and secure, and I'm not worried about having loads of room in and around there. I just want to feel nice and locked in and feel fast. That's what this shoe does. The midsole, again, absolutely fine. Nothing to worry about after 53 miles, 3 races, training runs, all is looking really good. And the only real wear on the bottom is just where the colour's been sprayed on. As you can see back here, it's just starting to fade away. That, again, is very normal for a racing shoe. That's going to scuff off as you start running in it more. I've got to say the grip on this shoe, as you'd expect with Puma grip, is phenomenal. It was brilliant. I was running on some smooth surfaces in Alicante, some very slick areas that maybe some shoes might not deal with as well. These stuck to it like glue. They were so tacky, absolutely brilliant. Nothing more to say, let's move on. So the first question I've been asked a few times, is this now your racing shoe of choice? And the answer is yes, this is my racing shoe of choice. I'm really enjoying it. As I said, I'm very picky when it comes to racing shoes. I've been a massive Vaporfly fan from 1. I was never a huge fan of the 2, but now I found that the other racing options aren't quite as good as the 2. I've kind of gravitated back towards those. I don't find them quite as good as the 1, but they're still really good for me. They work well. The geometry of the shoe, like everything about that shoe, is great. And it really does take something special to knock it out of place. And that's what the Saucony Endorphin Elite did. However, sadly for the Saucony Endorphin Elite, the foam went dead. Very much a case of after 110, 115 miles, I very much noticed a difference from one race to the other. I assumed it was just a bad race and I thought I'll get them out again, use them in a time trial because I didn't want to take him to a race situation, and sure as eggs are eggs, that foam had gone flat really quickly. So they're now just a training shoe. The Alphafly 3 is the other one I have that's a decent in decent condition for racing. Not a huge fan of it for racing, so again I'm using that in training. I feel fast in this, very similar Vaporfly geometry, which is why I think I get on with it really well. A little less aggressive, and that is because I mentioned this in the first video. The plate, if you trace my finger, you can see where it's been slapped in between the 2 slabs of foam there. It's a little less aggressive under the arch. In the Vaporfly, some of us, including myself, can often find we get a little bit of arch discomfort, or we find the arch to be a bit high for the first 2 or 3 runs before the foam compresses a bit. You don't get that in this shoe because the plate is less aggressive under the arch, as you can see there. It scoops down nice and low to the floor, exactly the same as the Vaporfly, but the Vaporfly cuts up more aggressively here and then flattens out. This is more of a standard spoon shape shape, which kind of just has a more gradual incline up here. So to answer that question, yes, this is indeed my racing shoe of choice now. But let's get on to that one thing, because there's been a couple of questions that are basically, would you use this for a full marathon or a half marathon? Well, half marathon, yes, but the full marathon, I don't think I would, and I'll tell you why now. What is that one thing? It's the Achilles. It's a very interesting one. A lot of you guys, when I shared my thoughts on this shoe originally, were very positive about it. Nobody really mentioned that anyone was getting too much of an Achilles issue, and I haven't had one either until Alicante. I noticed around mile 10 I was getting a bit of discomfort in my Achilles, and when I finished that race I actually had to walk back to the apartment with the shoes off because it was quite sore and it had created a bit of a blister on the back of my heel, mainly in the left foot, but my right foot was also sore as well. And this is actually something I noticed that the Two Running Brooms, another great YouTube channel, Dawn, she picked up the shoe, she mentioned it in her video, and that's the first time I'd heard of it, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, I've not had any Achilles issues, it might just be her. But then Tim Gross messaged me, he picked up a pair, he said the fit on it's really great, but he also noticed a very, very tiny bit of something in the Achilles, and again I thought, that's really weird, I've never heard anyone mention anything. And I've got to say, I actually felt it in Alicante. I didn't feel it in Boddington at all, and that was 10 miles, but when I got to 10 miles in Alicante, or thereabouts, I just started to find it feeling a little bit sore. I don't know if it's this kind of velvety felt-like material rubbing on the back, I'm not sure what it is, but I did get a red mark on the back of my heel, and on the left foot it did start to blister very slightly. That's not going to put me off from using them. I'm still going to use them this Sunday at the Bourton 10K, because it's nothing a bit of micropore tape or a bit of plaster can't fix, and it's certainly not going to dampen my spirits on the shoe. But I will say, I've noticed it, and actually I'd love to throw that question out to you. Is that something you've experienced in this shoe? That's the reason why I wouldn't use it for a full marathon, just in case the micropore or the plaster didn't work on the back of the shoe for whatever reason on that day. Again, you just want to mitigate risk when you're running a marathon. You need to make sure that everything is absolutely fine, tried and tested and good. And I'm glad that it's flagged up now at Alicante, because if I hadn't have had that, but then that would have happened at, let's say, mile 15 or 16 into a marathon and I was using them, I'd be devastated. So I know now that I will probably tape up my foot for Bourton just in case it happens again. But yeah, otherwise that answers that question. And the other question I've had a fair bit is in terms of how soft the foam is and what does it compare to? Well, it's a really difficult question to answer, but I'm going to describe a sensation that I get in this shoe that I got in the Saucony Endorphin Elite and the Vaporfly, which is why I feel this one works so well. And that's a snappiness feeling. So with the Saucony Endorphin Elite, why that tipped it over from using the Vaporfly for me and why I chose that is I found it was a superior kind of snapping sensation when you landed. What you want and what manufacturers are always trying to produce is the best foam and plate combination, so that when you do land and roll through the gate cycle, they're either aiming to roll you through smoothly or really get a nice snap off. Old Hoka Super shoes I used to find were much more of a roll through sensation and much less of a snap. Vaporflies were much more poppier. Alpha Flies were very much like a sink and bounce. Everything has a different sensation, but for me the type of feeling that works the best is that little bit of softness, but that snap, that propulsion that you get when the plate hits the floor and you get that lovely pop back off. And that's exactly what this does. Very similar to the Vaporfly, and for me again similar to the Saucony Endorphin Elite. I know a few of you will disagree with me on the Elite, and that's probably because I'm a heavier runner, nearer 90 kilos, 6'6". I'm going to be putting more weight through each foot strike than some of you guys that are more around 50, 60, 70 kilos. That's just a fact, and that's the type of runner that I am. But I get a very similar sensation in this one as I do from the Elite and the Vaporfly, and that is that combination of the snap, the softness and the propulsion. That trio right there is always what I'm looking for in a super shoe, and that's why they work so well. And if I haven't answered your questions, or if you have asked something on a previous video or an Instagram DM that I haven't answered, please do feel free to drop a comment below. I am in the middle of a 3-race weekend back to back, and I've got Bourton this weekend. I'm not particularly feeling great, if I'm honest with you. I've kind of come down with something post that flight home, but I'm going to be going to Bourton. I'm going to be racing as best as I can. We have another storm, which is absolutely classic. However, what I will say is I'm going to choose this shoe for Bourton as well. Then after that, I've got the Newport Half Marathon. I'll see how I feel. If it performs well again at Bourton, I'll use that, or I might switch back to the Vaporfly 2. It'll be one of those two shoes, but right now the honest answer to this shoe is this is well worth the investment. Just a reminder, I purchased it with my own money on sportshoes.com. If you're an England Athletics member, you can get 15% off if you put your registration number into your account. It automatically applies it to the checkout. I got this for £164. It is an absolute bargain. And so for that reason, for me, there's no better value option right now than this. Plus performance is absolutely brilliant. And so I hope that helps answer a few of your questions on this shoe. If you've got any more, as I said, drop them in the comments below. I do plan on testing more super shoes. I have done a video about that previously. I am really excited. I might have to just push pause at the moment because I definitely spent a little bit more in Spain than I anticipated. So I'm going to have to wait a couple of weeks and get some invoices sent out before I start spending some more money on shoes. But for the moment, I've got to be honest with you, this is absolutely brilliant. So that's it from me today, guys. If you're interested in seeing how Alicante went using this racing shoe, check out this video up here. And if you're interested in seeing how the Nova Blast 5 is doing after 200 miles, check out that video down there. And I'll see you guys over on one of those.